Australia's Great Barrier Reef, one of the most spectacular underwater worlds on Earth, an ideal place to observe an amazing range of animal species. Dolphins have been well studied by scientists worldwide, but in contrast we know very little about sharks. In most parts of the world today, the shark is under threat. Overfishing combined with its slow growth and reproductive rates may cause many shark species to disappear. This could upset the equilibrium of the marine world. Osprey Reef is a seamount lying 70 nautical miles outside the Great Barrier Reef. All around, the depth falls away steeply to nearly 1,500 metres. Here, the crew of the Undersea Explorer have been studying white-tip sharks for 8 years. Richard Fitzpatrick is a marine biologist and one of Australia's foremost shark experts. After working with sharks at Manly Aquarium in Sydney, Richard now divides his time between shark research at James Cook University and underwater cinematography. With 8,000 hours of diving, his life is dedicated to these animals.
I spent a lot of time out the reef snorkeling. I remember snorkeling since the earliest memories I have, and playing in the ocean and seeing sharks, visiting the Barrier Reef and seeing small sharks. I remember seeing a tiger when I was very young as well. I was diving with a mate and the tiger shark swam by us, and it was just an amazing experience. And growing up also we had saltwater fish tanks and marine tanks, and I used to keep epaulet sharks, little spotted cat sharks that you get on the reef. I used to keep them as a pet. So I mean, they're very misunderstood, so it's one of those things that, I don't know, probably supporting the underdog.
Together with Andy Dunstan of Undersea Explorer, Richard has constructed a database of the sharks of Osprey Reef. This long-term behavioural study is allowing a better understanding of this animal. Today, Richard wants to catch and tag new sharks with his particular capture method, tail roping.
413336.
And the other thing I want, if we get them, we've got tweezers, they're those leeches. Because last time we did the feed here, the males had leeches on the claspers. The tissue size is about that big.
Yeah.
Okay, it's very small.
Richard first attracts the white tips with a crate of fish. It's used to attract them, but not to feed them. This helps to prevent frenzies which can result from so-called shark feeding, where safety can suddenly be jeopardised. Richard prefers a gentler method.
Now, do you want us to shut off?
For the last 2 years, Richard has worked with Adam, another shark fan, who he met on a diving expedition.
He told me about all his work with sharks, and because I'm mad about sharks, I took an interest straight away, and then 2 weeks later I was working with him. He's always very, very interested in sharks. They've always been my favourite animal, I guess you could say, if you have a favourite animal. And to actually meet somebody who was doing something with them was just really good, incredible to find that someone was actually doing something with them. I mean, heaps of people say that they've got this love for something, but they don't do anything about it. He's out there doing something about it. It's very, very admirable quality to have, I think.
With the scent of food in the water, situations with large groups of sharks can be very dangerous. The sharks can bite at anything. If the situation gets out of hand, you have to get out of the water fast.
When you're handling a live animal, it's 110% commitment. But as soon as you flinch or hesitate, that's when you're going to get bitten. So you just got to go in there and get the job done. Just don't give up.
Richard gives Adam the first shark captured, a female of around 1.5 metres. They need to take the sharks back to the boat to tag them. Bringing them back to the surface this way makes the shark relax. Hanging by the tail vertically for a few minutes, the shark loses its references.
Yeah, the tail roping technique, when we first started doing it, what we'd do is we'd catch a shark, bring it back to the boat, we'd do the measurements and tagging and release the shark, but when we release the shark, we'd follow it and see what happened. You know, if it was a stressful event, the shark would leave the area. But most of our sharks actually go straight back to the crate. Okay, on the mat. Yeah, one on the mat.
Oh, you go there and sit on it.
All the sharks we bring up onto the boat, we put a microchip under their skin. It's about the size of a grain of rice.
Yeah.
And so when we're bringing the shark up on the boat and we're trying to minimise the amount of time, simply scanning the shark, we know exactly what that animal is. Okay, total length is 137. Okay, is 9 centimetres. 9 centimetres. Okay, 98. 10 mil. Between eyes.
Twice the last one, hey?
14. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, 14. Mating scars on it. And just look for parasites. Nothing.
No.
Okay. None. Reasonable condition. Okay. The white tips do have a home range, so during the day they're going back to that area. So they are territorial, in effect. And the important thing about this is that this is an isolated reef. If a fishing boat were to come out here and fish these sharks, where would the other sharks come from? So the oceanic reefs are very vulnerable to overfishing by shark fishermen. And that's what this data is starting to bring together, is the fact that these animals don't move that much. One single boat could come out to North Horn and take out the entire shark stock in one day. And where are the other sharks going to come from? So it's absolutely critical that we know and get this information and give it to the right people and say, hey, there's a problem here, we need to address it and shut down the shark fishing. So shark fishing is just, it's unsustainable. We're producing a whole catalogue of the sharks around here at North Horn. So when the students come out, they can go down and look for the sharks. That's really good for people to come up and come diving on the reef and learn about one shark, and that shark becomes like their shark.
The Great Barrier Reef is one of the most diverse ecosystems on the planet, one which we're just starting to understand. All the elements of this ecosystem are interlinked. Today, this unique and fragile coral reef ecosystem is under threat. To study the shark is to know the absolute predator at the top of this food chain. Its disappearance would have considerable consequences for other animal species, and therefore on our lives. Each trip, Richard brings students from James Cook University who work with him throughout the year back at the aquarium studio. This provides a link between theoretical science and hands-on practical work. The students have the unique opportunity of discovering sharks in their natural environment. Over the years, Richard has fine-tuned his investigation technique. Since the beginning of the shark research, many ultrasonic audio receivers have been placed around the reef, gathering information about the movement patterns of the sharks.
Around Osprey Reef in different locations we have these underwater receivers which look like the size of a soft drink can. And what happens when the shark swims within about a 200-metre radius, the receiver will record the time and the date and the identification number of the tag, because the tag inside the shark transmits every 30 to 60 seconds, just broadcasts the signal, and that receiver takes that information. So then we come back out and we pick up those receivers, bring them back to the boat, and we download the data. And that allows us to record information about the movement patterns of the sharks 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. Let's go down. 12. That's the new one. One new one. One for 13. The other thing too is just the sex ratio too between the animals. The males aren't as numerous as the females.
Yeah,
It's quite
that's
interesting.
Right. Yeah, and then they're aggregating at different times at site. So are they coming in to aggregate at one site, like North Horn, and then they're moving off to the next site?
They could be
And they're doing
servicing
this
a lot
mass
of girls.
servicing.
Yeah. Which.
It's good luck to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn
I've always
fine.
said that.
Yeah. I mean, our white tips are staying here, but yeah, I think the grey reefies are cruising. What we need to do is get one out here. You know, the one at the moment is Jezebel, which is a bit of a worry. So yeah, she's had these huge times where she's exited the area. And actually, if you look at that second last one there, and that size of that one there, this one's only just a bit bigger than the last time she had disappeared. And she's such a lovely shark. She'd come right up, and you just grab her underwater, she'd stop swimming, give her a pat, you could show her the people, and just let her go again. And I really miss her if she's not here.
Yeah.
Richard decides to do a night dive to observe the nocturnal behaviour of the sharks. At night, the sharks are hunting. You have to be even more vigilant.
What white tip's doing, it's looking for fish that are asleep. Like a parrotfish will be sitting there, and the white tip can go in under the ledge. They don't have to keep moving. So they're very well adapted to nocturnal feeding. So it's amazing to see the two sides of the shark, you know, the calm side and the hunter at night.
Parrotfish feed on the algae growing on the surface of the reef. At night, it forms a mucus bubble. This may help to mask its odour from predators. D-Day on board the undersea explorer. Richard wants to capture a grey reef shark. This time it's another story and requires a change of technique. The grey reef shark can reach 2.5 metres in length. It's more powerful than the white-tip reef shark. Tail roping with the lasso is out of the question, it's too dangerous. Richard decides to attract the sharks from the duckboard, a technique which he's in the process of fine-tuning for the capture of the tiger sharks.
Not that one. We didn't want it. Put it back. It's too small. Wait till it's small.
I don't like them. That's a yellow one then.
It's a yellow. All right, moving it. Dragging it backwards.
Drag it
Dragging it backwards. Oh, let it out. Let it out slowly.
A lot of these sharks, when you turn them on their back or you hold them upside down, they just shut down and chill out, almost essentially go to sleep. We hang the shark there for about 10 minutes, and while they're hanging, they're actually still physically pumping water across their gills, so they are breathing. With the white tips, we can hold them ourselves to do the surgery, but the grey reefs, it's all muscle. They're a very, very powerful shark. A few times when we brought them up, you get a flick from that tail, it reminds you exactly how powerful these animals are.
Wait. Okay, roll. Okay, leave it, leave. Beautiful.
We can go a bit harder in that sleep. We can come harder in. That's not tight in there.
Hang on.
So we can still use more bits of target for that. Okay, we've got to push these in a bit harder.
Yep.
All right.
Okay, how do we
Down a bit.
Okay. No. Wait.
Having disinfected the shark's skin, the team start the surgical operation to implant an ultrasonic transmitter. The batteries will last 5 years.
The other technology we're using are these transmitters, which are about a couple inches long, and these are surgically implanted in the body. Okay, so the finger's going in the body cavity, just under the skin. And the female sharks, their skin's twice as thick as male sharks, because when it's mating time, the male sharks bite the female. So these animals are actually quite used to getting big rips and tears right through their body. So even though it looks nasty, it's probably not much worse than what she confronts every year during the mating season. It looks quite traumatic, but in actual fact, the sharks heal up very quickly, and that had no ill effects. So hopefully with the new transmitters we'll be able to work out their home range. And I'd think that it's a lot larger than the white tip, probably up to 5 miles is their working area. But again, it's very small. We're 70 nautical miles off from the coast, so again these sharks are vulnerable to overfishing. So all this kind of information is essential to have for us to conserve shark stocks in the future.
Just let her have a bit of a breather before we finish with her. Okay.
Yeah?
Wait a sec, I just want to check a reef on. Yeah, she's pretty out of it. Okay, pass it through.
Got it. Keep going for it.
We're navigating between the coast and the reef on board the Floriat, an old customs boat. Richard wants to place a transmitter on the dorsal fin of a tiger shark to follow its movement by satellite. The tiger sharks have a sixth sense which allows them to feel electromagnetic fields. Richard believes they may use this to migrate over enormous distances. Rain Island, a coral cay in the extreme north of the Great Barrier Reef, is the site for this study. This is one of the most protected areas in Australia, where each year after long migrations, thousands of green turtles come to lay their eggs. For the first time, Richard and his team have permission to land on the island.
This trip we're about to do will be the first time I've ever put foot on Rain Island. So I'm really excited about that. For the last 5 years, we've been going up on the reefs around Rain Island. So we've been able to only observe the island at a distance while we've been looking at the sharks on the outer edge of the reef. But this will be the first time we've actually had permission to go on the island, so it's really exciting. I mean, it's something I've always dreamt about. The green turtles, they come from far away. These animals are travelling thousands and thousands of kilometres, migrating to Rain Island just to lay their eggs. Okay, just as we come into, just grab the anchor. Just take it straight up the beach. So she's digging a body pit out at the moment, which uses the front flippers to excavate the whole pit initially, flicking, and then the rear ones to make the egg chamber. Just be careful of the sand going down, but you can see the eggs. So she'll be laying, you know, well over 100 eggs. Very cool. Oh look, there's a little baby turtle just running down the side. I mean, that could be the baby of this one, but you know, there's no recognition at all. You know, the babies never get to see their mothers, the mothers never get to see the babies. They just drop the eggs and leave them. Yeah, so these guys would have hatched a couple of hours ago. They'd just been waiting under the sand just for the sun to go down, and bang, they all go off at once. So safety in numbers, they all run down, and hopefully a few of them will make it to the edge of the beach. And then of course after the edge of the beach you've got fish, sharks and everything else out there as well. But of all these, you know, only 1 or 2 may survive to grow to be adults, so it's a pretty tough way to make a living, isn't it?
Some adult turtles simply die from exhaustion or from exposure during the heat of the day. For those who make it to the waterline, the next danger will be the tiger sharks.
And so it started me thinking about, if we have such an intensity of animals there through that period, they must be migrating from somewhere else, because there's no way that that population of sharks could be sustained during the winter months when there are no turtles. So there must be big migration patterns happening. What we want to start learning now is how far are the sharks coming from to Rain Island. And it's possible these animals are going thousands of kilometres. And it's only through brand new technologies, satellite tracking equipment, that we can now finally work out where these sharks are coming from.
It's a tiger. Adult tiger sharks can measure 6 metres and weigh over a tonne.
But the tigers themselves, you know, you're talking about the second most dangerous shark. After the great white, then comes the tiger. And it's quite ironic that such a dangerous animal is so timid. They're very, very cautious. And we've seen tigers circling a dead turtle for hours. They're swimming around and slowly come closer and closer. Eventually they'll bump the prey, get a sense of what it is, and then come back and start feeding on it.
The weather has become worse and the boat has to re-anchor. The strong currents make this a delicate manoeuvre. The reef around Rain Island is incredibly steep, dropping to over 700 metres. The wind has changed overnight, bringing the monsoon rain.
The weather, you know, we're in the middle of cyclone season now. We could have a cyclone come out any time, and that's probably the biggest worry at the moment is what's going to happen with the weather. So yeah, there's a lot of things against us. Top of Australia, middle of cyclone season, there's monsoonal troughs all around at the moment. So yeah, the weather's very scary.
The continual rain forces the team to wait. And still there's no sign of tiger sharks.
So we have 2 of these. This is a satellite tag. We'll bolt that onto the dorsal fin of the shark. The idea is that when the shark's dorsal fin comes out of the water and these 2 terminals, or one of the terminals dries out, it actually turns the transmitter on. So when it's in salt water and the salt water covers the 2 terminals, it's in the off mode. Okay, it's when the circuit is broken, it actually turns on. So when the shark comes out of the water, and the top of the dorsal fin will be about there, it'll send a signal up to the satellites, the Argos satellites, and they'll record the GPS fix of that shark. But the other thing to remember is that tiger sharks are dangerous. After the great white, it's the second most dangerous shark out. Generally with the tigers up here, they're a pretty slow moving shark, but they keep coming back. And the few occasions where we've had problems with them, it's simply pushing the shark off, and that'll make it go out, but they do tend to come back again. So just be scanning everywhere. Don't get fixated on one animal when you're working on them. Keep your eyes in the back of your head. But other than that, should be a lot of fun. Any questions?
Day 6 of the expedition. Another large monsoonal thunderstorm passes, and the bait is getting low. The sharks are here. A few white tips have had a go at the bait, but we're waiting for a tiger shark, a much shyer species, and the bad weather is not helping the cause.
Elsewhere, northwest to northerly winds, 10 to 15 knots, with seas to a metre. Showers or rain areas and local thunderstorms with squalls. Wednesday's outlook, mostly northwest to northeast winds.
The trick with sharks is to know when to stop. You get that feeling that something's not quite right, and it is time to get out of the water. I mean, we're not out there to try and hurt ourselves. You know, we're trying to learn about the animals and try and not get into dangerous situations.
5 p.m. A tiger shark finally arrives.
Yeah, pop the head up.
To minimise damage to the shark, Richard has cut the barb off the hook. Without a barb, the shark can spit out the bait. The team has to act quickly.
Stop. Right. Okay, let's get it in.
Tension has to be maintained on the rope. If it slackens, the shark can spit the hook and escape.
Yeah, corner it.
Okay, coming up, coming up.
Oh, it's sunk. I just felt it sinking.
No, you still got it. All right, all right, all right. 3 metres away.
Okay, Richard.
Mouth is right under. Oh, guys.
She bent the hook nicely.
It's 6 p.m. on the 7th day of the expedition.
This whole thing's about as exciting as cricket.
It's out to the left.
A second tiger shark, bigger than the one the day before, finally takes the bait.
Yeah, she's hooked. Pull her. Pull her in, pull her in. Quick, 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 quick.
Take the tension off the people behind me.
I can see the ball. It's not working.
Richard's still angry at himself for missing yesterday's shark. He regrets not having jumped into the water, regardless of the safety measures he set himself.
Okay, we're on.
Bait's gone again.
Be bloody careful.
The shark is returning. It's gone for the bait. The fight is on.
Guys, watch out, your legs.
Still on.
Careful. Still on, still on. He's so bigger than the last one.
You right?
Clear the rope and give it back to me. Quick, 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 quick.
All right, she's up.
Here she is, here she is. Okay, hang on.
All right, she's up, she's up.
All right, go, 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 go.
Pull it right then.
She's coming up to your side, Richard. She's just behind you.
Quick, quick, quick. I had it. I just lost it. Come on, girl.
Take it in, take it in.
You right?
Watch your head, watch your head.
Jesus, I'm getting a power breath.
Rich, you right?
Get us a rope.
The light's running out. If the shark spits the bait or the rope breaks, the game is over.
Go, Richard, go, Richard. Careful, careful, careful.
After 10 minutes of struggle, Richard finally manages to rope the shark. With the tail secured, the tiger shark simply gives up the fight.
Okay, pull.
Go, the tail's up.
Go, 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 go. Don't let it go slack.
Woohoo! She's huge. She's bigger than yesterday.
Now Richard can start the second phase of the operation.
There's bubbles everywhere. I was looking for the tail. You put your arms out and the head just comes out in front of you. It's like the wrong end.
It's sort of always been an ultimate dream of mine to get up to Rain Island to work on tiger sharks. It's probably one of the last great frontiers where you have large predators doing stuff that we know nothing about. So it's very pioneering.
First, Richard needs to dive again to attach ropes to the caudal fin so the shark can be raised into a horizontal position. Richard has fixed himself a strict protocol to follow without losing time. The shark is calm for only a few minutes.
Just take a bit of slack.
The barbless hook simply slips from the shark's mouth.
Yeah. 10 foot 8. 10 foot 8.
Did you get it?
Yeah.
Okay, full paper.
Hello. 10 foot 8.
The female shark measures 3.2 metres. Richard attaches a satellite tag by piercing the dorsal fin. Supplied with a battery to last a few months, the tag will send a signal each time the shark breaks the surface. The information will be transmitted to the Argos satellite system and downloaded by CSIRO, the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation in Hobart, Tasmania.
Yep.
Before releasing the shark, which they've named Nicole, Richard takes a piece of fin for DNA analysis.
Okay. Tissue sample.
The whole operation has lasted 10 minutes. For the first time, a tiger shark has been captured and tagged in Australian waters. Richard can now study her movement patterns via satellite.
So, clear. She's swimming away beautifully. Oh, what a beautiful girl. You beauty. Yes. Dude. That's so cool. So cool. Yes.
Here's to Nicole. So thank you very much, crew and all. Everyone put in 110%. We got the job done. We came back unscathed and with all our limbs, which is very important, especially for me. So thank you very much, guys. Team Tiger. Yes. Team Tiger.
Return to Townsville. 2 months have passed since Nicole was tagged at Rain Island. Richard regularly receives the latest GPS points from CSIRO. By plotting these points on a navigation chart, the movement patterns of the shark can be followed. It appears that Richard's hypothesis is correct, that these sharks move large distances.
Following the sharks from space. Very neat. Okay, so we've got 10. Oh, also she's done a big move here. So let's have a look at 10, 11, 5, 8. This tiger shark has swam into the middle of the Ashmore Reef complex from Rain Island. Something sparked her interest here. She went out and back, cruise on up. She's pretty interested out here, and then it's decided to head up through the middle, across on a day, and the next day right in the middle of Ashmore. That is very cool. Just come back up through the middle of the lagoon, crossed over, back out to almost the point where she deviated in, swam across the barrier reef, and it's now into the middle waters here. This is shallow water in here. And she's swimming huge, big swims here.
Richard's research continues. It's critical that we learn more about the biology and ecology of the shark. With their low reproductive and growth rates, sharks are under threat from overfishing. For the health of our oceans, it's necessary to conserve these great marine predators. Each time a species disappears, our heritage is diminished. On May 22nd, a tiger shark is accidentally caught in a barramundi net in the Gulf of Carpentaria. It's Nicole. She is over 1,500 kilometres from where she was tagged at Rain Island 2 months earlier. Nicole is dead, asphyxiated in the nets before the fisherman realised she was tagged and could free her. The fisherman returns the satellite transmitter. The project is over. Until Richard and his team are able to return.
Sharks, particularly the tiger sharks, it's the #1 predator. It's the apex predator. Because it's at the top of the food chain, it controls everything below it. So right from the tiger sharks, the turtles, down to the corals, the smallest fish, and even the plankton, everything is related together. And we have to understand all these different individual animals, but then all the relationships, so we can better understand and better protect and manage the environment. So everything can be used at a sustainable rate. Biodiversity is very important. There are things out there in interrelationships we just don't know anything about at all, and we may not know about them for generations. And if we destroy them now, we could be having a huge detrimental effect to the ecosystem, the whole world.